Hello, everyone, and welcome to Winged Victory with Rob and Scott, a podcast by the National Museum of World War II Aviation here in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Welcome to another episode. I'm Scott Clares, and here once again with my esteemed co-host, Rob Gale.
Oh, esteemed. Wow.
Esteemed.
How about that?
So today we're doing a bit of a redo. We did a podcast with them back in September, and we had some technical difficulties, so we're sitting down with him again today. We have a esteemed Warbird pilot, Philippe Barker.
Well, you're esteemed too.
Yeah,
Yes,
I got a couple of esteemed
you.
people to my right.
Thank
So Philippe is, not newly now, but back in September, he was a newly minted Corsair pilot.
Well, he's still our newest Corsair pilot.
Our newest, yeah.
Yours, yes.
Yes. So you actually got to go out and fly the Corsair again today. You're actually out here to do our fly day tomorrow, as this is being taped.
Yeah.
And so you get to take it around the pattern a few times. Is it still as thrilling as it was the first time?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's the rush of a lifetime, and but felt right at home.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like you've been flying it every day since September, it looked like.
I wish it would be the case, but yes. Yeah, absolutely.
More of that 487 a gallon avgas.
That's it. No, it felt great, and I would say it's just a huge rush. Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you come from?
Well, I came from up north where the snow that's coming down right now.
I know. We actually finally got winter, and it's only the middle of April.
Came from Canada. Was born and raised. You can hear it, Montreal on the east side.
Yes.
Learned to fly up there, and then flew the bush a little bit up there, and then moved down to the U.S. to find a job, bigger and better.
Yeah. And now you're down in Houston, Texas.
Down in Houston, flying corporate and Warbird as much as possible.
Well, because you got a lot of T6 time.
I got a little bit, yes. Yeah, a little bit T6 time down in Houston, and then I did some over here and came up for a while.
Yeah.
So
how did you get into the Warbirds? I know you weren't really born into it like some of us were, and you kind of had to work your way into it.
Yeah, obviously, no, I was not born into it. It's too much snow up north. So through friends, down in Houston, I had some friends, some of them that Charlie, Chris, and they were flying at the museum, the Lone Star Flight Museum down in Houston, and flying Warbirds. And one day they asked me if I felt like flying Warbirds and give rides. And I said, absolutely, yes.
Now, those are friends.
They're great friends, yeah. It's who you know.
Oh, absolutely.
It's who you know. And,
but it's also not just who you know, it's what you know and what you're being able to show people.
Of course.
That you have the ability to take training, and
yes.
You're not a wild card out there that's going to hurt some of their equipment or anything like that. So
and have some tailwheel time. That was the major thing. Have some tailwheel time, and then go fly with the chief pilot, Charlie, and Renee after that.
So how was that the first time you got to go out?
Oh,
with
the first
Charlie
time I was very
around?
nervous.
Yeah.
Basically never flown a steerman, and just go fly with them.
Oh, so you checked out with Charlie and a steerman, not a T6, huh?
Initially, yes. And I was nervous the first time. You're trying to impress the person, and that person is going to determine if you're going to fly Warbirds or not.
Yeah.
So, but it went well, and hit it off, and it was great. So.
No, that's really something. So your primary was primary.
Primary was primary, yes.
Wow.
And a steerman, yeah. And then obviously the T6, and we have a PT-19 just like here.
Yeah.
And
that's an easy airplane to fly, though. That's not like a T6.
That is not. Absolutely correct. Anybody can fly that.
Anybody can fly a PT-19.
Well, I'm not sure I could fly it, but it would take a day like this for that little six-banger to haul my chubby carcass into the air.
Oh, yeah, to perform, yes.
Yeah, well, out here at altitude especially.
Yeah.
We can't fly that thing even above 50 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. It's a dog at sea level, so I can only imagine.
Oh, yeah. It could be a little hairy sometimes. You take off and you go,
Are we really?
I just need to turn around and go back.
Yep.
And hope it's downhill.
And then we're done.
Because it runs out of full stop I need a little bit more. Give me a little bit more of that. There is no more.
Yeah.
So T6 time. What else we got? What else have you been flying?
Well, D6, B25, TBM, obviously Corsair,
Yeah.
and working on more.
So what is it like? I mean, let's walk us. I know it was back in September, but to walk us through the process of like even what is the process of even getting from start to finish into a new bird like a Corsair?
Like the Corsair. Initially, you have to get a letter of authorization, but prior to that, you have to get a recommendation. So obviously, the examiner cannot train you and give you a check ride. So somebody else that's already rated.
So 2 sets of eyes.
2 sets of eyes. So obviously, the Corsair is a 1-seater, so can't put 2 people in it.
Nope.
So you have to fly into an airplane that is similar to the Corsair, as closest as possible. So I flew in a T6 with an instructor that's rated on the Corsair and did all the maneuvers and also obviously gave me a practice oral ground school, and then signed me off. And then you get a LOA issued by the FAA, letter of authorization, to do some training flights.
And do you still have to do a cockpit check? I mean, be able to reach all the...
Technically, no. They give you the LOA. And
okay.
You go fly the airplane, you go practice, and then you do a check ride.
Well, because I saw you up there checking the whereabouts
a bit of
of all these.
Always. Always.
Yeah, you always want to remember exactly where everything's at.
You do. If something happens or hydraulic fluid or smoke, you have to remember where the switches are, where the landing gear is, the basics. So you can do it with your eyes closed, blind. So,
Yeah.
and then we fly different, all of us fly different airplanes. So one day it's in a B-25, one day it's in a Corsair. Well, things are different.
Well, even from Corsair to Corsair. Or
even a Corsair to
T6
Corsair.
to T6, everything's
Yeah.
always different. There's always something that's off.
Absolutely. So after the LOA, after you do practice flight, you sit down with an examiner, and the examiner gives you an oral. And that's the time that he sits you in the cockpit and asks you questions about foot switches and gear and limitations. And the examiner sits on the ground and listens on the radio and watches you do your profile. What's planned on the profile? Steep turns, stalls.
So you've got a certain routine. If you're talking about profile,
yes,
you have to do this maneuver, that maneuver.
Yes, and obviously it's all on ADS-B, so it's basically normal takeoff, steep turns, stalls, all the stall series.
Missed approaches, stuff like that.
Yeah,
Go
configuration changes, gear, flap, slow down, and then come back and do normal landings, missed approach,
No
flaps
flap
up landing, flaps
yeah.
up landing, and then the examiner is right there looking and grading you. And then
How many bounces was that?
Yeah, 1 landing, 3 bounces.
Yeah.
And then you debrief with the examiner. It's either you pass or fail.
Well, it was pretty heady stuff to watch you climb out of that airplane in September. Mm-hmm. We were all just thrilled.
Probably not as much as I was.
Probably not.
But that's almost like,
Probably
like
not.
a mixture of just happiness and relief all at the same time, because I mean that's a lot of work that goes into just getting to that point.
Yes. Yeah.
And then to have everything go, and then I mean not only that, but you're stepping into a kind of a strange airplane that you got other people that are doing the work on it that you're banking on, because you're putting your butt in the thing, and then for all of it to come together, and especially after the week of flying we did, because you were out here flying the TBM for the series that we were filming. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like you just came out and this was the sole purpose. There was a lot going on, and then it was like, okay, now it's your turn.
We got our pound of flesh for that check ride.
It was great. It was great. I enjoyed the whole week. But yeah, it was I admit it was a relief that all went as planned.
Yeah.
And especially this Corsair. This Corsair is very special to me and to everybody, I think. It's the Corsair of all Corsair, the only one, only Brewster Corsair.
Yeah, which most people don't know. Brewster made Corsairs. We're finding out. But
even ATC often doesn't know.
Yeah, they didn't even
Yes, matter of fact.
That was pretty funny.
Although I just heard a rumor today that there was one, or maybe is one at Duxford, just not airworthy. but I got to run that to ground.
Got it.
I don't know, but all I know is it's the only one flying.
Well,
we have it, so
and it's
here at our repair shop.
Yep.
And you got to fly it. I mean, you're one of what, 5 different people that have flown that thing.
Very, very fortunate.
That's a pretty extensive list, actually, when you think
Robbie,
about it.
Jim,
You
and
got Stu Dawson did the test
Alan.
flying in it. Robbie Patterson, Alan, Charlie Hainline, and Philippe Barker. That's quite the list to be added to there, pal.
Well, that's some company to be in.
Yeah, I got some big shoes to fill.
Those are some pilots. So obviously, this has always been an iconic airplane, anyways, for most people that are into the Warbird industry, and even not. I mean, it's a visually recognizable airplane. So I mean, on your list of airplanes you wanted to fly, where does that rank?
Number one.
Number one.
Yeah. She's so distinctive. I was at the doctor's office before my shift, and somebody says, "Is that a Corsair on your shirt?" Yeah.
Yeah,
And you can watch one fly.
exactly. Tomorrow.
Yep.
So it being number one, you're done now, right? There's nothing
Oh,
else
no,
to fly.
no. There's a long list of wishes. There's
Yeah.
a long list of wishes.
Yeah, and what's next on the docket? Because I know you got some stuff lined up, possibly, and what are you looking to do next?
Oh, maybe a Wildcat, maybe a Mustang,
You're gonna go
whatever comes across.
You looks like the difficult airplanes to land, huh? The Wildcat, that's like got to be one of the top most difficult Warbirds to
Well, just to get
land.
the gear down.
Oh, the gear up. yeah. It's very narrow. So, but yeah, this one was definitely number one for sure.
And we're pretty fortunate. So I probably even see him in the background if you're looking at you right now. But that's actually, I believe, Lex Crawley. He's the guy that actually pulled that thing out of the swamp in the early '90s, and he's out here for the fly day. So you get to show it off.
I haven't met Lex. I'm looking for it.
You and me both. So we're gonna sit
None of
down
us.
with him.
And we are looking forward
Wave
to
for the
it.
cameras back there. So yeah, I mean, it's just great having you out here. It's great that we, to, like you said, experience your first flight and be a part of that. I mean, looking forward to many, many more, of course, and flying with you. And
Are you planning on September?
Absolutely. Took some time off.
Good.
Hopefully. I mean, even if I don't fly, I'm coming. Just watch the show.
oh no, you're gonna definitely be flying.
Absolutely.
You'll be
No.
flying. So yeah, we're gonna get you checked out in that Helldiver too. That'd be
Absolutely.
pretty cool. Yeah.
Say
Take a
when.
little load off of Charlie.
Say
Yeah.
when.
I was amazed after all I've read about the Helldiver, and Charlie just loved flying that airplane.
Mm-hmm. You did.
And he's flown the Dauntless, which is, kind of the sweetheart of that that bunch, and he likes the Helldiver.
He does. He really does. Yeah. Maybe one day.
Maybe one day. Well, how about multi-engines?
He does
Well, you got to be 25.
Yeah, there's maybe some other ones in line.
I think there's some twin-engine airplanes here somewhere.
I mean, we got a PBY seat that we need filled.
Ready.
Yeah.
You need to start
Ready.
working on that.
I got the Albatross. So
Yeah, well, that's
Well, there you go.
just a lateral move,
that's
really.
a lateral move. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's some Tiger Cats.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You just need to get you where you're not flying all over the world and that
That's-
actual real job of yours.
Exactly.
Get you to spend some time around here.
Absolutely.
We got all kinds of fun stuff for you to fly.
Yep.
No, and I appreciate it. I really do. It's a privilege to come here and spend time with you guys to see how and what you guys do is amazing. To come from small pieces of metal and rivets and end up with pristine airplanes that are back to what they were originally.
Yeah.
And you guys do outstanding.
Well, it's
Well,
fun doing
again,
what we
you-
do, but it's fun for us to have guys like you come out and enjoy them and
Oh,
put
yeah.
them up in the air for everybody to see. And I mean, it's just a blast. It's really
It is.
a full circle thing being here because you get to see it all, from start to finish, really, and then get to enjoy it. The reap the rewards of it as it's out there ripping around the sky. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
So here at the National Museum of World War II Aviation in Colorado Springs, Colorado, we have a lot of flying airplanes, over 25 in fact. In our early years as a fledgling museum, we had like 3 batteries to share between all of these airplanes. So you can imagine what it was like whenever we decided to fly something, having to remove and lug one of these heavy things called a battery. In the year since Concorde came on as a sponsor to the museum, our battery malfunctions and need to replace them has gone to zero. If you've ever fired up a Warbird or watched one start, you know that you don't always get it to light up at the first go. The amount of worry we used to have hoping you had enough juice to actually get it fired up just no longer exists for us. We have total confidence that we will have the battery power we need to get the show going. At the time, we were using the more conventional aircraft battery, but take the top off and check each individual cell for proper acid level. You know the type. You never quite get that level right, and either it would be dry or it would be overfilling and spilling acid all over you and the plane. I had more than a couple shirts destroyed in the process of moving one of these batteries, but no more.
Thanks to Concorde Batteries. With their innovative, fully sealed battery, gone are the days of worrying about acid spills in your beautifully maintained airplane. Not to mention the absolute bulletproof reliability we get out of every Concorde battery we have in this museum. If you're tired of the mess and worry your old battery brings to you every time you want to go fly, install one of these beautifully packaged Concorde batteries. Get yourself an improved battery minder, plug it in, and never have to worry about it again. The peace of mind is worth every penny. Find Concorde batteries at concordebattery.com, proud sponsor of the National Museum of World War II Aviation in Colorado Springs, and fully endorsed by the Winged Victory podcast. Okay, so out of what you have flown, is this your favorite?
Of course. Hands down. Of course.
Yeah.
That is the favorite one.
There's something so distinctive about that airplane, and it is an icon. And even if she wasn't the only one, any Corsair would be that way. But of course, I'm sitting next to one of the premier Corsair maintainers ever.
I don't know about that.
Jim Tobel told me that you're the only guy he trusts.
Well, no, it's the only shop he trusts. But I spend a lot of time on that airplane, and you get very intimate with it. And it's a very difficult airplane. It's got its quirks. It's not an easy airplane to work on sometimes, but once you get to know it, it's definitely got its charms.
What was the worst for you to work on? What was the most difficult part of putting this airplane back together?
Well, I didn't put this airplane together. This was actually done down in Azelles, Texas.
Okay.
They did the restoration on it, and they did a beautiful job.
Truly.
I would say maintaining it, the worst thing is taking that damn Y duct off the bottom for the supercharger just to get to the accessory section. And getting it off's easy. Getting it on is like an act of God.
Yeah.
That's always, man, you try to avoid that as much as you can. Like, do we really have to take that off? And fortunately, lately, there's a couple other people, Nicole and Bill Dude and Kevin. They've kind of really taken over the maintenance of that thing. So they're the ones I get to walk by and watch them while they're fighting it and sweating and dropping tools and F-bombs and everything else that goes with it. We did gyms, just even getting the gear synced up correctly, because it's got so many different moving parts to lock and unlock, and there's these eccentrics, and it moves the gear all over the place, and then it has to lock at a certain pressure and unlock. And to fine-tune that, I mean, you could spend weeks if you don't know exactly what you're doing. So that could be pretty fun. But just even standing on the wing and servicing it, your calves.
I was watching Nicole sliding.
Yeah. Well, that one's even worse because it doesn't have the wing walk on the side. It's out.
It's
a weird. It's like, why is it out there? I work over here.
And you're trying to find your footing for it.
Yeah. So you get to work out when you're doing that. It's a pretty cool airplane. What would you say is probably the best characteristic of it when you're flying it?
While flying, it's very smooth on the controls. It reacts. It's very sensitive.
I thought that was just you.
Yeah, I wish. And I would say landing it. It's got tall legs.
Yeah.
And as soon as the main touches and you slow down a little bit, it's done flying.
Yeah.
It's not like the T6, which you work at it until it's stopped, which you do with this, but not as much as the T6.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? I
Yeah.
kind of thought you'd be fighting it for some reason. I don't know
T6,
why.
you fight it more than this.
Really?
Yes.
The whole.
In my opinion.
The whole time you're flying
Yes.
taxiing a T6, you're
Taxiing
fighting
a T6,
it.
you're fighting it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, you're talking about tall legs, and here I am looking at that Avenger over there with about
Oh,
twice.
yeah. Yes. Yes.
Well, it's a little different on the Corsairs because the struts are completely compressed when it's sitting on the ground. Like if you look at most of the airplanes, you'll see chrome showing. But in order to get when the gear goes down, it extends all the way, and then when it's retracting, you gotta suck it back up to get it to fit in the wing. But if you have any pressure or it's over pressurized, it'll break the cable off.
Yep.
And so as it sits, it's sitting fully compressed. So I think, like you were saying, once it settles, it's not doing the bouncy thing.
Not like the TDM.
Yeah,
You push
yeah.
one brake,
Or
you
one
bring-
strut comes down
One
and one
strut comes
sticks.
down, yes. This one doesn't. It's done.
Yeah, you're just done. So I can see how that would settle. And it's a little bit wider. I think
Yes.
it's a little bit
A
wider
little bit
gear than the
wider.
TBM.
A little bit wider.
It's not like the Helldiver or the Thunderbolt, but it's definitely got a wider
Still.
stance.
Yep. But it has a long nose.
Yeah.
A long barrel. So your vision is restricted a little bit.
So maybe the wider runways like we have here.
Love the
is
wide
nice,
runways. You
'cause
see two nice
really see it.
triangles. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Charlie just press ganged you one time and said, "I'm taking you to Colorado," and fall in with this den of thieves. And
He he didn't have to press. Oops, sorry. He didn't have to press very hard. No, I was invited, and Charlie said, "Hey, do you have time? Do you want to do it?" I said, "Absolutely. I'll make the time."
beautiful.
And I was very, very fortunate for Charlie to trust me, and for you guys to trust me doing this over here. So
Well, I think that's one of those, if Charlie trusts you, you're there.
yeah, don't want to disappoint him.
Charlie's like, I need somebody else to go fly all that stuff because I don't have the time to fly up there all the time.
Yeah.
You go do it, Philippe. I've flown that stuff. Corsairs, whatever.
Exactly.
Tiger Cats, easy. Helldivers, whatever.
Well, he likes that hell dive.
Yeah, he does. You know what? He's one of the few people that I've talked to that actually really likes that airplane.
He does. And
Yeah.
if you watch all
I think
his,
Ray Fowler likes it too. I talked to him. He's flown a couple of the other two.
Yeah? Oh, the Dash 5s?
Yeah, he's flown both of those, and he really enjoys it.
if you watch all his landings, he greases them all. if
Oh,
you
man,
notice.
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It looks like he's landing a PT-19.
I know.
Well, this has been awesome.
It has been. It's so great to see you again and to get a chance to revisit what we didn't get captured in September.
Yeah, we were learning back then. We were just
Still learning.
young amateurs, So
Still learning.
we've definitely evolved this quite a bit, and this will definitely get up and sound good this time. So
Absolutely.
we're really thankful that you came out and sat down with us, and just love having you out here flying this stuff, and really looking forward to years and years of this. And we'll
Yeah.
sit down on every check ride you got.
Absolutely.
New airplane. We'll sit down and we'll talk about it.
Well, thank you very
Have
much.
ourselves a little Blantons
Maybe
afterwards.
Absolutely.
maybe even a little beverage here and there.
Absolutely. We got to celebrate every single one of them.
Absolutely.
And everything in between.
Everything in between. But thank you for having me. Absolutely. For the second time. And
Well, hopefully this is just one in a series.
one in a series. Yes.
All right, Philippe. Thank you very much.
Super.
Thank you.
Thanks, Philippe.
Thank you.
So we got a do-over.
Yeah, and I think it's great. I wasn't too worried about it. I was sad when we didn't have that,
Yeah.
emotion of the first flight, but technical stuff happens, and I knew that he would be back out here and be flying this stuff again. I didn't expect it to be quite so far in between, but
Yeah.
Winter's winter, and he's got a life and things going on.
Yeah.
And we got things going on, but I'm just glad he came out. He's flying this thing. It looks great.
It was so cool to watch.
Really excited for the fly day tomorrow. The weather's going to be much better than it is today.
Yeah.
And so we're pretty excited about that. We'll hopefully show a little bit of that maybe on this episode. You get to see a little bit of the footage.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's going to be great.
what's really great about his story is, like I say, he wasn't born into this. He wasn't raised into this, but he still, as there's a will, there's a way to find your way into something like this.
I think for a lot of aviators, these are really special airplanes.
Yeah.
I mean, people get grabbed by it. I mean, there were those of us who came into it as children and never left it. And may still be children.
Well, I just mean as far as, flying them, I mean, there's kind of a couple ways to get into it. You're kind of around it your whole life and you kind of grow up in it, or you accumulate a lot of money and you buy your way into it, or you do it the way Philippe did. And, he's a pilot and he's going to hang around, and you hang around the right people and show him the right stuff, and then they give him the opportunities. And next thing you know, you're flying the world's only Brewster-built F3A Corsair left in the world flying.
Yeah.
And that's quite something.
And it is, the mark of trust and the qualifications to do that. That's a special group of people.
Yeah, it takes a lot. I mean, think about it. You got people that, like you said, you got two people that are signing you off to do it.
Yeah.
Well, one's giving you the recommendation. The other one's going to sign you off when you're actually flying it. But then you got to have somebody that you got to have that trust built up in the word of mouth that somebody's going to let you get into the airplane.
Get there.
Yeah, to get into the airplane. It's not like like I said, he's not a volunteer here, or wasn't. He doesn't work here. You don't get to know him, but he's got a reputation, and a guy like Charlie Hainline, when he says he's good, then everybody goes,
vouching.
You're good.
Yeah.
Let's do this thing. And we did get to see him fly a bit in the TBM and see, that he was able to do that and handle himself real well.
Well, and again, according to Charlie doesn't like the TBM as much as some people do, and that's a big airplane to fly.
It's a big airplane. I've never even flown in it, so I don't know. I can't really speak on it, but I could speak of what other people have said. Having a pretty heavy aileron control on that thing.
Yeah.
It's not for the faint of heart. And like you said, if you look at the thing, you're a million miles in the air when you're landing that thing. I mean, it's got to feel like you're landing a boat.
I don't know. I was over the moon when I got to fly with Alan in the TBM, and of course, not being a pilot, I couldn't begin to comment on how it really felt to fly.
Yeah.
But it felt solid.
Yeah, and when you're flying with a guy like Alan, you don't even, like, he doesn't put you in a position where you feel you're going to feel anything weird. It's all going to be solid. It's going to be great.
Yeah, and it probably felt easier than it should have.
Yeah.
Just because
That's
Alan.
the way he makes it feel.
Yep.
He's a hell of a pilot, and all these guys that are flying this stuff, man, they're no jokes.
Nope.
Whether they've been around a long time or they're fairly new at it, like Philippe, they got the skills, and they prove it time and time again.
Yep, sure do. Well, this has been a lot of fun.
A lot of fun.
We talked about Philippe flying for the History's Greatest Aircraft docuseries, and we're all waiting on that.
Yeah, I actually got to see the producer's version. I don't know what the Hollywood speak is for it, of episode 1.
Director's cut.
Director's cut, I get. Not the director's cut. It's for. I think they send it out for proof of, like.
Oh, the rushes.
This is what it's kind of the pilot, I guess you would say. But I actually got to see the preview of it. I got to see the whole 45-minute episode. They're going to make a few tweaks here and there on it, but I mean, overall, it's pretty fantastic. I'm really excited about it. It really kind of shows off, I mean, not just the airplanes in the museum, but a lot of the personalities of this place. And this place is full of them. We got a lot of personality.
Yeah, well, yeah, that didn't used to be he's got a great personality.
yeah, well, here it really does mean something. Like it's a lot of fun. They really kind of show a day in the life of the museum somewhat, and I'm excited for it. So I'm not quite sure when it's going to actually be done and coming out, but I think they're shooting for Q3 now, Q3.
Well, the aerial sequences that I've seen are just stunning.
Yeah, well, that doesn't stop on this. It's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
A lot of work went into that, and I mean, you could really see it. These guys are. It's almost like they have too much footage to really choose from.
And well,
so
that's a
great.
good position to be in for a filmmaker.
Yeah, we're really happy about it. So
good.
So we got that to look forward to. We got Pikes Peak Regional Air Show, September 19th and 20th. Go on pprairshow.org, and you can get your tickets for that. I would highly recommend it. It's going to be pretty Warbird centric.
Yep.
We're going to have a lot of planes from out of state coming in. So we're definitely going to have some different planes than we've had in the past.
Well, and this will drop, of course, after the Corsair fly day, and I think the next fly day is Thunderbolt.
I think so. I'm not sure if we're going to have a change in that or not yet, but I would anticipate that it'll be the Thunderbolt, and I'm not sure on the date on that. Probably the middle of next month, May.
Yeah.
So
typically third Saturday.
You could always go to the website and check for dates on all of our events here. And we'd like to thank Concorde Battery once again for being a big sponsor of this thing, and Blazing Aviation as well. We're been leaning on old Jeff over there at Blazing Aviation now because we're starting to ramp up
burn some oil.
Yeah, and we all know what the oil's doing right now, so get it while you can. Get over to Blazing Aviation and make that deal before it becomes too much to bear.
You guys are going to need a bunch more smoke oil for the air show,
Yeah, smoke
too.
oil, just regular oil. We always have a pretty good size order for the air show.
Yep.
So it's great that we got guys like that on board to help
Absolutely.
with all that. And if you'd like to help the museum with donations, we are putting sheeting on the new building.
Yep.
And we still are looking for the funds to finish that. But you can always go to our site, or you can go to the description page on the podcast, and there's ways to donate, help.
Every little bit.
Even just sign up and your normal purchases at the grocery store, help the museum in every single way.
Well, and come on out and see this treasure.
Come out here and see it for real. I mean, we try to show you a little part of it in the background every time we do one of these, but it doesn't
There's so
even,
much.
we haven't even shown you 1%. So get out here. There's a lot to see. You can spend the day. You can go over to the airplane restaurant and have a lunch and then come back. I mean, just make a whole day of it and enjoy the Warbird scene.
There you go.
And meet all the people that are here. And you've probably seen most of them,
Especially
on our podcast.
the talented ones. Well, you're
Seen
starting to meet some of them, and there's more to come.
Yep. So I think we'll wrap it up from there. So
Let's do.
Thanks to our guest, Philippe Barker, and hope he has a safe flight tomorrow. I'd like to thank William Stevenson behind the camera, my partner Rob Gale, and myself, Scott Clares. Stay safe out there.
Please do.